Dear Gergel, dear friends, it's a great pleasure for me to be invited by you to your summer school. I know that you celebrate the 15th anniversary of the creation. It's an incredible success. We also organize in Poland similar event, but this year we will try to organize the 7th time. So we are a child baby compared achievements. It's a really nice to see all your faces. I saw Tamas, I saw Gergel, I saw Elizabeth, Adam. It's incredible pleasure for me to see all this, all your faces, and to meet all friends. Invited this time to speak about doctrinal texts. That's the presentation. We're not able to discuss about the content. However, it seems to me that the topic is really hot and really important. And I divided, frankly speaking, my text into two parts because it seems to me that it is not possible to present and to discuss doctrinal text without the broader context. So let me also share with you some thoughts about the current situation in the heritage protection, because it seems to me that is the challenge for the whole world, obviously also for Hungary, for Poland. We face totally new situation, and therefore it seems to me that such a short introduction is necessary, because thanks to that we will know better why we are dealing with doctrinal texts, why they are important, and what is the proper direction in creation of those doctrinal documents. So, just a second, I'm trying to... Okay. It works, okay. So, dear colleagues, as you know, if I have to explain what does it mean heritage protection, it seems to me that we should indicate three elements. So firstly, we have to select elements we treat as the heritage. So it means we have to select elements from the past. Then we have to discuss how to stop their deterioration. And also we have to create the proper condition based on which we could send those elements into the future. But how to do that? That's the open question. You know, there is no even one commonly accepted book presenting the heritage theory, conservation theory. The conservation theory is presented in the form of the doctrinal texts. They, simply speaking, explain how to do all these stages. But currently, there are also some special reasons why the doctrinal texts are so important in those days. So firstly, this is the formal reason, because this year we celebrate anniversary of the creation we can call the first international doctrinal text. This is the Athens Charter. That document was created 90 years ago, so it is really very old document. However, we also celebrate this year the 10th anniversary of the creation of the Heritage Urban Landscape Recommendation. This is also a new doctrinal text indicating a new attitude toward the heritage protection. And because of those anniversaries, we decided in Poland, we organized conference on that topic, and also as a theory committee, we decided to organize conference about the doctrine and the doctrinal texts. We planned that conference on May. However, due to pandemic situation, we postponed that conference on September. I know that Adam is one of the speakers, but other colleagues are also invited maybe you would have the chance to join us in September in Florence. That would be the topic of to be discussed. That's the formal, one can say, the reason that we're talking about the doctrinal documents. But more important is are the arguments, I call them substantial, because the world is changing, the heritage notion is changing, and the most important is that the heritage protection circumstances are changing rapidly. And because of that, we need a new theory for the conservation, and therefore we need new doctrinal texts. As a result of the changes in circumstances, we faced the process we called since few years so-called paradigm shift. It means a rapid and deep change in the theory of conservation. So these are the current reasons why we should also discuss the issue of the doctrinal documents. As I already underlined, it seems to me that we should start shortly presenting the circumstances of the heritage protection. I would like to present the topic from some point of view. So, you know, we celebrated the 15th anniversary of creation of ICOMOS that was in Warsaw, and the title of the conference was Transformation in Conservation. And preparing that conference, we saw that that expression transformation has a variety of meanings, because in many aspects we face the transformation of the conditions. So it means we face the changes in understanding the term of the heritage. Obviously, it's much broader. The changes in functioning of the heritage. Nowadays, we use the heritage to much more many purposes than previously. Then we face the rapid changes in circumstances which direct and define the abilities of the heritage protection. And as a result of that, we face that final transformation. It means changes in principles and forms of conservation and heritage protections. So from many points of view, we really face that process of transformation in our domain. So it seems to me that for now we could describe the contemporary situation, and we could also predict the future consequences of that. Now I try to collect some elements of the contemporary processes. So as a result of a broadened notion of heritage, the number of monuments is much bigger than previously. There are huge differences between different types of heritage. Nowadays, the heritage protection is more oriented on commercial purposes. In Poland, but not also in Poland, but also in other former socialist countries, the heritage protection is privatized because owners of the heritage, these are the private persons or commercial institution. We face the process of democratization of the heritage management, the increasing role of these so-called stakeholders, and because of that, the conservation theory is much more relativized. It means, frankly speaking, we are not able in a clear and simple way describe of the conservation theory. It seems to me that such a phenomenon we could already describe, but if we would be not able to change the situation, we could also predict the consequences of that. It means we probably, the monuments, it means heritage, will be modified. It means will be transformed, would be destroyed. We would be losing, it means the people responsible for the heritage protection, we will be losing the control of the form of maintenance of the monuments. Rather, the position of the conservation institution will be weaker, not not stronger. The forms of the monuments would be very different. Some object would be strictly protected, but some would be transformed into different forms. And probably the status of the monuments would be also different. We observe the tendency to introduce the categories in monuments protection system. It means different categories of monuments. Some of them, they are protected, they are classified as important monuments, and on the other hand, other monuments are less important and could be transformed. And of course, because the theory is not simple, it's not obvious, the importance of the theory would be not so important. What is the current situation? What are the current conditions? How we could describe the current condition in the heritage protection? So firstly, must be accepted by us that the heritage protection is not independent discipline. It is not easy to accept that statement, but that's true. Because society decided that we're responsible for the monuments, but in practice, we have not right to decide about the existence, about the form of the existence. So this is the paradox, that we were indicated that we're responsible for the heritage protection, but we have not enough rights to keep those monuments in the way we think is proper one. So that's the important paradox of our work. So as a result of that, we should redefine the many aspects of the heritage protection according to a new needs and a new condition. I showed you those two first statements in order to convince you that the situation is not changing. In the past, also the situation was the same. But the result of that rule is that always when society is changing, when the circumstances are changing, we also have to change our attitude toward the heritage protection, because we don't have enough power to keep those monuments in the way we are thinking about that topic. We are able to keep monuments only on the way on which our society is able to agree. So that's the paradox of the heritage protection. So it means that all aspects of heritage protection, it means definition, what does it mean heritage? What are the aims of the heritage protection? What are the functions? What are the principles and forms of the protection? Must be a bit different than were in the 19th and the 20th century. We have to investigate what is the current society able to accept, and according to that rules, we have to redefine and formulate our policy regarding the heritage protection. I do hope that you understand what I am trying to say. I'm not trying to say that we should follow their expectation, but I'm trying to say that we should understand very well what they are able to accept, under what conditions, and based on that, try to define our policy. So what we have to do? So firstly, we have to develop that new paradigm. This is, I have to underline, this is the task only for us. As you said, I know that now in Eger there is 20 colleagues from Hungarian Society of Conservation. So probably these are the key persons of the Hungarian heritage protection. It depends on you. It depends on us how to formulate the current conservation theory. No one from outside is able to help us to solve that problem. because the traditional paradigm is already outdated, because that paradigm does not describe and respect the present condition of the heritage protection. The second task is to develop a methodology to evaluate the heritage. This is also very important. We were not able to solve that problem because, as I already mentioned many times, our ability of analyzing the heritage is limited to its description and to inventory, where we don't have enough tools to assess the value of the heritage in order to convince the society which elements should be protected, which not. As I said, we are not able to carry out that analysis of the assessment value. The third important point, it is important to develop and to implement models of heritage protection which are different in different cultures. Later on, I will describe that aspect in a more detailed way, but this is a very important aspect. In all our countries, in all regions, there are totally different conditions of the heritage protection, different traditions, the position of state service, the number of monuments is really different. The quality of monuments is totally different. If you compare, for example, England and Poland, the quality of monuments is totally different. It means that we are not able to use similar rules and similar solutions in our heritage protection. It means that we have to develop our own models which could fit in our conditions. This is something in contradiction to the idea, for example, of our main organization. It means ICOMOS, because in ICOMOS we're trying to work on a global scale. We're trying to use the common language, and because of that, we're not able to solve the detailed problems. We're not able to discuss detailed problems. We're only to discuss a very, very general ideas. And that's a weak point of our organization. The other aspect, or saying that in other words, the problem is that many different elements of the heritage, and even it seems to me that we should say many different heritage in many different countries or cultures, we are not able to protect according to the rules which are obliging, for example, in so-called Western culture. So this is not so huge problem for us. This is the biggest problem from the countries outside Europe, outside of the Western Hemisphere. However, because of that, we face a problem even in Europe, because they didn't agree on the Western solutions. They protested, and as a result of that, we are slowly also using our ability to protect the monuments, because we're losing the common theory of conservation. That's also the problem in Eastern Europe. For example, even if we compare the characteristic of heritage in Poland, comparing the former Germany, which nowadays is in Poland, for example, Wrocław or Kraków or Szczecin. So it means the characteristic of that heritage is totally different than the characteristic of the region in which I live now. So it means Lublin, totally different heritage, and we're not able to adapt those solutions to our timber modest monuments. So that's a huge problem. And very important and also widely discussed problem, the intangible heritage. Because, frankly speaking, as I observed for many years, we reduced the intangible heritage to secure the dimension of folklore. And the intangible heritage means much more than folklore. And we are concentrating on that dimension of the intangible heritage. And this is also the problem. So because of so many problems, it seems to me that we have to summarize that the future of the heritage protection is an open project. We couldn't say for sure that the heritage process, the heritage protection will finish with the success. The heritage destruction in a wider scale is also possible. And again, I'm returning to the same expression that we have to construct a new heritage theory. It means new doctrinal text according to the current new condition. And I have to say that we are not able, obviously, to control the reality in which we're trying to protect the heritage. But we should create a vision how to keep the heritage in the contemporary condition. Again, we are not responsible for the reality in which we are existing, but only we are responsible for our answer on that reality. And as you know, that new paradigm has not been formulated yet. I showed already a few times that comparison between the traditional paradigm and the current paradigm. You see again, if we divide our discipline into three pieces, object, aim, and methods, they change dramatically, comparing the traditional paradigm and contemporary paradigm. You see on the screen which elements could describe that phenomenon. So the difference is really huge. Summing up, it is possible to say that the heritage protection in the light of the new paradigm, it is the individual selection of the values, even not the monuments, but the values. And based on that, we have to indicate the aims and methodology of the protection. How deep is that difference? I would like to show you based on a very convincing examples. As you know, nowadays we have many doctrinal documents which were formulated based on the European Year of Cultural Heritage. That was 2018. And that celebration was organized because of the success of European Architectural Heritage Year. That was 1975. I compared those two elements in order to show you how situation is changing, because it is relatively easy to compare those two important events. So you see 75, 2018, even the title, the name, we were discussing in 1975 about the architectural heritage. Nowadays, we're using the name cultural heritage. It's much broader. The motto of that event, a future for our past. You know, the future, it means how we are using, what is the future of the legacy of the past. Now the motto was shared heritage. Action, which were underlined in the text of that was the integrated conservation. In 2018, we were saying about the participatory governments. It means in 1975, we were discussing about how to conserve and how to organize the integrated conservation. Now we are saying not about the heritage, we were discussing about the users, how to, the main topic were the users. Scope of as defined in documents, architectural heritage, again and again, again. In 2018, society in transition, discussion about the people. So again, about the users. In 1975, we were discussing about the modernism and about anti-modernism. Nowadays, we're not saying about the heritage. Now we are saying how to reach the sustainability using heritage. And why we're dealing with that heritage. In 1975, we were talking about the protection, and now we were discussing how to use, how properly use that heritage. So as you see, the situation is really totally different. So as I said, in 1975, we were discussing about the protection, heritage protection. Now we were discussing about the use. In the past, attention was paid to the heritage, and the present, the attention was shifted into the heritage users. That's the difference. And the last point in part of the topic is the universalism of conservation theory or texts. Is it possible to have such universal theory? It seems to me that at least we have divided our discussing about the heritage protection, about the heritage theory, onto 3 levels. So first one, this is the national level, because all practical elements influencing the heritage protection, they are constructed on the national level. It means legislation, organization of conservation service, finances, and so on and so on. So this is the national level. Regional level, if we cooperate, we should cooperate on the regional or at least continental level, because we have similar religion, we have similar climate, we have similar historical borders, we use similar constructing materials. So this is the second scale. And the third level is a global level. Also, we could on that level discuss and create doctrinal documents, but those elements are totally different. Only to some extent we could solve or to discuss similar problems. Yes. So the actions undertaken on specific levels must be different. That's my message. That it is not easy or even not possible to create common doctrinal documents to protection of different types of heritage. And I have to confess that in Poland now, we're creating our own doctrinal texts. We started and we created for the protection, about the historical ruins. This year we accepted as ICOMOS Poland a new doctrinal document for the fortification. And now we are elaborating the documents regarding the cultural landscape. So now I would like the second part of my presentation discuss the strictly the doctrinal documents. So what is the definition of the doctrinal text? This is those texts present the group of ideas which are treated as true in a specific society, and they say how to interpret particular facts and how to conduct the actions. That's the main definition of the doctrinal text. Why we need those doctrinal documents? What are the main elements of those doctrinal elements? So mainly, there are three main aspects or tasks for the doctrinal texts. They have to define basic notions, so they have explained what does it mean, heritage, authenticity, integrity, and so on and so on. Then they also have to define aims and programs of heritage protection. So to what extent we have to protect or to use, how we could use, or for example, whole attitude, this is also an element of the program of the current heritage protection. And the third element, they should define or could define the rules and activities which are accepted. So, for example, the widely discussed decision of the Venice Charter that the contemporary additions should be prepared in a modern way, contemporary way. This is one of the rules which is important for the heritage protection. So such elements should be or could be presented in the doctrinal documents. This is, I have to confess that the doctrinal documents, this is not a strict science. So what I am saying to you about the doctrinal text, this is the result of the analysis of the existing doctrinal text. This is not the quotation of some summaries explained in any book or something like that. So based on the practice, I have to say that we have so different types of the doctrinal text. We have declarations, charters, principles, guidelines, documents, conventions. These are the main types of doctrinal text which are used in practice in our society. How many? Nobody knows how many. In my computer, in file in which I collect doctrinal texts, I have less than 200, but obviously I have only the selection of those doctrinal texts. It is even hard to estimate number of those doctrinal texts because there are no any rules in which is described who is able to create under what condition and so on. So frankly speaking, everybody who is willing to create a doctrinal text in our day is able to do that. Even if you until now didn't create a doctrinal text in your summer school, I'm a bit astonished because 50 times it is high time to create your own doctrinal documents. So if not, you should do that. Who is creator? As I said, no any limitations, any organization, conference, groups of professionals, and therefore the number of doctrinal documents is still growing. No limits, no any limits. Of course, this is not a proper situation. And because the great number and the growing number of doctrinal documents caused many different problems. So firstly, as you know, if you will, I am dealing since many years with doctrinal text, but if you ask me what are the rules to create a document, I would be not able to say. At the end of my presentation, I will present some proposals. They partly formally or informally, they were accepted by the ICOMOS, but in practice, they are not in use in a real life. So I'm not able to say that they are rules or procedure. Formally, they are some, but if you decide to create in Eger your doctrinal documents, you could write a page or 20 pages or 50 pages, and you could invent your own structure, and nobody would be able to say, this is not a proper doctrinal text. This is, I'm sorry to say that. As a result of that, we have a problem because there is hierarchy of doctrinal texts. So if you will ask me, for example, of someone else, what is more important, Venice Charter or Athens Charter or whole recommendation? Nobody is able to answer on that question. And this is the problem, because I know that you have that, sorry, Gergely, you should tell me, lemon price, yes, in Hungary, probably. Yes, so, but your exception. In other countries, there is no formal criticism of the conservation works. Because, frankly speaking, you are not able to evaluate which work is proper or improper, despite of activist solution. Because you should support any activity using, you could find doctrinal text saying, or you could interpret at least that you are right, your work. And that's the problem. There is no hierarchy of doctrinal text. So you could use any document and to say that I'm right because I'm using that document. And having so many different documents, you could justify any ideas. And of course, as a result of that, doctrinal documents are not coherent. Their contents were never coordinated. If you decide to create your own Eger document, you should doctrinal text. You could sit and write and don't think about the content of other documents. And as I observe the content of those documents, other colleagues doing the same. So this is the problem, because the doctrinal text formulate different rules and even contradictory. That's the problem. What we could do in such situation? ICOMOS, I will show you, created some rules of creation of the doctrinal text, and those procedures should be accepted. But as you know, we are talking only about the documents which are produced by ICOMOS General Assembly, and this is only a small number of texts which are produced. And it seems to me, if we as ICOMOS would like to introduce some order in that domain, we should carry out the evaluation of the existing doctrinal texts. So we should say that there is a corpus of doctrinal documents which is formally accepted by ICOMOS, and to state that. Nowadays, you could propose whatever you want. Tamas probably remember that I produced analysis of those doctrinal texts some years ago for executive committee, and now I would like to show you a very short part of that analysis. And having a great number of documents, it seems to me that we should divide them, taking into account the type of the document as they declared by authors, form of adoption, and the subject. And having such scheme, it seems to me that you could divide doctrinal documents, the great variety of doctrinal documents, into some interesting group. That domain would be simple. So you see charters, document, principles, guidelines, convention, declaration. They could be accepted by General Assembly of ICOMOS, International Scientific Committee, National Committee, Conference, ICOMOS, other organization. And subject also, general rules, heritage group, typological group of heritage, action or feature, and regions. So using that scheme, you are able to evaluate any document. Yes, as I said already, yes, you see, and using that scheme, as I said, you could introduce an order in domain where is no order. Yes. Which documents should be used? It seems to me that formally documents should, which are formally adopted by General Assembly of ICOMOS and formally used by other or other accepted or produced by other cooperating with ICOMOS bodies. But the problem nowadays is with the documents which are prepared and adapted outside ICOMOS. I already recalled the HAL recommendation, which was accepted by UNESCO General Assembly or Faro Convention, Council of Europe. That's the problem, in my opinion, because colleagues, it seems to the Tomasz agree with me, that we treat those documents nowadays as documents obliging in our conservation society, but those documents were prepared outside of the conservation society. It means that those documents are shifting the conservation theory and conservation rules without consultation, without real consultation with our society. And in my opinion, this is the problem, that we accepted already content, which is sometimes, it seems to me, is going too far according to the requirements of our domain. We don't have time to discuss those elements. This is not so important. I would like to only to show you new trends. Now, on that slide, I selected today the documents which are nowadays in use, which are accepted as important documents, which are approved just now. So-called NAMUR Declaration, European Quality Principles for EU-funded interventions. You see a people-centered approach to cultural heritage, which was accepted just half a year ago during our last General Assembly. Heritage and Sustainable Development Goals, Policy Guidance for Heritage and Development Actors. So prepare a huge document nowadays widely promoted, and European Heritage Alliance 2000, so-called Europe Day Manifesto. This is a document accepted by the coalition of many European organizations under the umbrella or under the guidance of the Europa Nostra. Why I selected those documents? Because frankly speaking, if you read the content of all these documents, they are concentrated not on the heritage. These documents are concentrated on the users. They are saying that we should respect the requirements of the users. You know, the heritage is treated as a tool, as a source which should be used for the sustainability, for the happiness, for different development goals of the current society. Obviously, it is not possible to discuss with such statement. Obviously, the heritage is for someone, it's for the society, but it seems to me that there is not a proper balance. It seems to me that we moved too far. As I mentioned again, in all these documents, the main concern is on the society, on the stakeholders, on the users, the rights of the users, not the rights of the heritage. Maybe I am too traditional, but it seems to me that that process is going too far. And as a result of that, the heritage would be destroyed. Again, this is the selection of the lately accepted documents, also by ICOMOS, by international ICOMOS. As I said, there are some formal rules for the acceptance, for the adoption of doctrinal text. This is the short description. So firstly, formally, the international committee should prepare such a text, or ad hoc committee for that. These documents must be distributed to all national committees, then must be approved by the executive committee, and then must be approved by the general assembly of ICOMOS. And from formally, those rules have been accepted in 1984. So formally, from that time, we should accept only documents which underwent some such procedure. Obviously, this procedure should be obligatory. It's not, because if not, the growing number of these documents, this is not a proper solution. And these are still my proposals. How to introduce order, so it means how to limit the number, even or typology of those texts, and formally that rules were accepted. I elaborated that rules some years ago, and they were formally accepted, and formally they are obliging, but nobody takes care about that, and this is the problem. Some proposals to keep that rules, because this is not proper, and I'm adding at the end those points because that maybe this is the topic of the discussion, should be open, and it is not so obvious from my point of view. As you see, the Washington Charter was accepted 1987, and our colleagues decided to update that document. As you know, we don't have any more discussion about the updating of the Venice Charter, but other doctrinal documents, they are updated. And this is an open question. We could discuss that issue. Is it acceptable or is it not? Should we create, if we feel that we need new document, should we update the previous document, or should we keep that document as a historical document, as a heritage, and to create a new one? This is the open question. Yeah? This is the open question, what to do with that. The second question is whether we should authorize some documents or not. This is also open question and very important. It means finally, it leads to the question whether we should make any hierarchy in those documents or not. Is it possible? Is it possible? That's the open question, to decide about the common core of the conservation doctrine, which should be respect in a new creating documents. This is also an open question. Maybe there are some statements which are obligatory and which should be as respect in a new documents. This is without that everything is possible. So this is not also the good solution. So as a result of that, maybe it would be useful to create a corpus of doctrinal documents, which is still in use. Okay. And question for discussion. What doctrinal text do you know or use in your work, which should be taken into consideration in your country or in your domain? What you need additionally, what additional document you need for your work, what should be the content of the doctrinal text you need, and is it any theoretical basis for the doctrinal documents? It seems to me that those topics could be also discussed during your summer school. And maybe this is my final remark. It would be useful to decide about 1, 2, 3, 4 documents on which you agree and you could use as a basis for your conservation activity in your country or in your domain. And that's the proper use of the doctrinal documents. Yeah. So thanks a lot. That was what I prepared for today. I am ready for discussion if it would be interesting for you. And I would like to add that now I am preparing the new edition of the corpus of doctrinal documents to celebrate the anniversary. That would be the collection of circa 40 documents, which from my point of view are the most relevant. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And it's a good. May I ask a question to you?
Of course, I'm at your disposal.
You mentioned that you have your national committee made a local, not a doctrinal test about ruins, fortifications,
and cultural landscape.
And
yes.
Cultural landscape. And from this point of view, what kind of doctrinal test could you make? And from your point of view, how fits this your national doctrinal test to the international series?
You know, what was the main reason of that? As I already mentioned during my presentation when I was in Eger, we faced a growing number of the rebuilding of the castles. And that was the reason why we decided to create that document. We thought that it would be nice to have the formally accepted document, very short, in Polish, in which would be stated that the rebuilding of the ruined castles is forbidden. It's not proper. You know, that was important for our state service because, you know, they were the politicians and owners insisted on them that they have such ideas. And they showed them such documents and said, this is the formally accepted document. I would like to rebuild, you know, but I would be criticized. The body of in Poland, it is stated, I would be criticized by my colleagues. So therefore, you know, of course, I would like not to say that we stopped all rebuilding processes. Of course not. But many of them, yes, because our colleagues, they needed a formal support, you know. And for them, the new accepted document, because that was 3 years ago, you know, a new accepted fresh document, so they can say this is the updated conservation theory, updated conservation document. ICOMOS is the most important organization, and it is written here. You could not. I cannot agree on that. That was the function of that document.
Would you send it to us because we are in the same region. This is a regional problem.
Of course, Gergely, of course. This is even translated in Polish.
Never mind, because he is our friend. We ask him.
Yes. Please even check. It seems to me that this is on our website, ICOMOS Poland. There is a lot of publication in ICOMOS Poland. It's publications, and you will see the collection of the doctrinal documents and also doctrinal documents accepted by ICOMOS Poland. You will see.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask you whether this Polish text has been accepted by the authorities or just for the local ICOMOS?
No, that was, we formally accepted during our General Assembly, it means ICOMOS Poland General Assembly, and our, that document is accepted and honored by the state service, not by the authorities. And the decision to rebuild castle or it is undertaken must be accepted by the state service, finally. It is not possible without their permission. And states and the officers working, Wojewódzki Konserwator Zawód, regional conservator, and they accept that document. They know the document and they accept that document. If they want, if they don't, this is not a law, but many of them, they want to accept that. They agree on that.
Yes. What would be the consequence if they wouldn't do this?
Again, what would be what?
What would be the consequence if they would not accept it?
Nothing, but our colleagues, generally speaking, generally speaking, they accept not to rebuild the castles. Our society accept. So they need the formal support. They need a document based on which they can. I can't say yes because it is written. The organization of that's our doctrine, that's our theory, not to accept. Okay.
Thank you very much. Presentation, Bogusz. It was, as usual, it was excellent. My question is more global, not for local or regional. But you mentioned, and I fully agree with you, that some of doctrine in contradiction. And what do you think the theory committee you are guiding starts to at least to address those points which are in contradiction, or it's not a very urgent something?
Yeah, Tamas, of course you are right, but frankly speaking, nobody is interested to undertake that action. There is not atmosphere for that. Even the Venice Charter is a very small document, and new accepted documents are really huge. Are really huge. So
I know because they are producing the set of documents, and we are going to make a translation into Hungarian. It's a huge job because they're too long.
Yes, they are too long, and there is not content, because we need doctrinal text should be short.
I agree.
Where doctrinal texts, these are not manuals, and now our colleagues are producing manuals. And frankly speaking, as I said, I am preparing a new version of the collection. I don't know how it would be possible to add these new rules in those places. Frankly speaking, there is the problem with doctrinal documents and with doctrine is that our colleagues are not able to accept and to see the current situation. That's the problem, and they are not able to understand what we're thinking on that topic. You know, that from their point of view, that people-centered approach. You know, if someone is concentrated on a people-centered approach, we don't have the common language with them.
Okay, but you know, one of the most basic principle, it is how to say it is not to harm. This is the biggest and most basic approach, not to harm, and it's very close to the health issues. And if you are dealing with your health, you are going to doctor, and you're not voting for the solution or the participative solution, or your operation is not so fantastic. And my feeling is that the role of professionals is not very well estimated today.
Tomasz, again, it seems to me why I decided to organize that conference in September about the doctrinal documents. Frankly speaking, not to discuss about the doctrinal documents, because this is not used, because there is inflation of those documents. I finally still hope that that would be possible to create a group of colleagues. They agree with the opinion that in the center of our activity should be monuments, not people, not users. Yes. If we accept that, we could start acting.
Okay, you know, I agree, fully agree.
This is the main problem. Because there is not consent on that topic, on that issue. Because we moved to the users, in the set. You remember we were talking many times with Michael Petzet, with Billy Lip, that again, this is the main problem, to agree on that the topic of our interest is heritage, not the users.
Okay, so thank you, Boguslaw. I don't want to privatize a discussion. Maybe some others have also questions. Or okay, they are not enough brave.
Thanks.
You
in Poland is hot. In Hungary is hot. Thanks a lot for that invitation. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.